Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our event, co-hosted by Stanford Alumni in Tech, who I represent, Stanford Entrepreneurs, and a few other communities. We're excited today to talk to y'all about how to use AI to facilitate prototype development, MVP development, even when you're not technical. So whatever level you're at, we hope you'll get something useful out of this. Um, to kick things off, I'd love to have all of our presenters introduce themselves. First of all, as I said, I'm Natasha, representing Stanford Alumni in Tech. I'm calling in from San Francisco, where I've worked in tech for about 15 years across product, UX, operations, and over the past year or so have really been getting into AI. Outside of all that, I love to do art, go to the ballet, and just enjoy the outdoors too. JZ, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Natasha. Call me Jay-Z like the rapper. I rap about artificial intelligence. I represent Stanford Entrepreneurs, and my background in advertising, I've done market research and social media. I've been a UX designer in financial services. I've led AI modeling, voice to text, and chatbots. And now I'm a solopreneur and I build prototypes for video and AI founders. Divya, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jay-Z. Hello, everyone. I'm Divya Sabate. I have about 10 plus years of experience in product management and product strategy, building and scaling marketplace,
Well, yeah, it finished around.
experience for building and scaling marketplaces and platforms across Walmart, Deloitte, and few other startups in the Bay Area. Super excited and learning AI and sharing and upskilling fellow folks. I represent AI enthusiast community. It is supported by Microsoft. So I've been TAing there as well. So happy to share my insights with you all.
Hi everyone, I'm Thomas Roca. I'm calling in from San Diego. I'm here representing Sharetribe, which is a Finnish company and a no-code tool for building an online marketplace platform. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about building marketplaces on the internet today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone. So our agenda today, JC, can you just scroll a little? Perfect. To kick things off, we're going to be talking about do-it-yourself software development. Jay-Z will be leading us through some of that with her and bringing her own expertise to this. So really excited for that. Once we go over some of that background, we're going to dive into demos of Loveable, Supabase, Bubble, and Sharetribe. And we'll each be taking turns on that one. And at the end, we'll do some Q&A. So on that front, if you do have questions throughout the presentation, feel free to stick them in chat. We may not get to them till the end, but feel free to, jot that thought down in chat and we can circle back to it. Great. So let's kick things off. Take it away, Jay-Z.
Thanks, everyone. Can you all comment in the, oh, Siri was just trying to respond. Can you all comment in the chat if you heard of vibe coding, how you heard of it? So actually, Natasha, I actually heard about vibe coding in your Stanford Alumni and Tech Speed networking event. And then I brought it back to Stanford Entrepreneurs where we talked about it a little more. So if you haven't heard about it, it started only in February. So don't worry if you feel like you're late to the game. We're all getting to the game at the same time and we'll be answering a lot of your questions today. And I see, in the chat, some people heard about it in social media, LinkedIn, Microsoft. Awesome. It was coined in February by the OpenAI founder, Andre, because it's a way for you to type in a sentence asking AI to give you back a code snippet. And so I would say that there's been a lot of good and bad reception. The good part is for entrepreneurs and founders like us. The vibe part is the enthusiasm about the idea of the software you want to launch. Whereas the coding used to take millions of dollars, millions of hours to launch. The vibe part is getting to your idea to launch in a couple of hours. As we'll see here, some of the demos were done in like half an hour. So it's just really focusing on the passion of the idea instead of the grueling implementation. I will say that I also believe in some of the backlash. There are enterprise level coders who would say that it generates really bad code that's impossible to debug. Like it generates bad code on top of bad code on top of bad code, and then you can never figure out like how to debug that. And I think there are also a lot of security concerns, which are all founded. But because our focus here right now is entrepreneurs getting started, that will not really be a problem until you scale up to like millions of users. And then on the last note, Thomas, you're a Finnish company, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yes. So all the, Sharetribes and Lovables and Supabases are actually based in Europe. Why? Because the government is actually funding them, whereas in American fundraising, it's all private venture capital. It's highly competitive. The European government is writing much larger checks much more easily. And so you'll see companies like, in Finland and Denmark, and not like from San Francisco. And then in Europe, there are fewer coders who are backlashing against it because it's not replacing their jobs. Like there are very few coders who have jobs in Europe. So the economy will boom due to the software that will get produced as a net positive instead of feeling like it's going to take away someone's job security. So that's a little bit about the history of vibe coding. And if you have comments or questions, we can get to them at the end. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick example from my own experience. In vibe coding, I started last year when I started my podcast, and I had this, crazy idea that I wanted to animate the conversation using pictures and drawings in real time. And I vibe coded a website. It literally took me 1 hour, and I spent then like many hours validating that website with potential users, and they were like, what I actually need is a podcast playing tool. And so that's an example of when you are technical and you do not jump straight to creating your data structure, writing those lines of code. You vibe code a website with a button that just says like sign up now. And if no one clicks that button or you can't get them to click that button, you should probably pivot. And that's a great example of where vibe coding is free in the beginning to generate this website. It only takes 30 minutes of your time, and you get a lot of insight out of it. Why did I then switch to no code? Well, everyone was telling me from my podcasting community that they wanted a tool that linked LinkedIn to Canva to so many other tools, to Google Calendar, to Adobe PDF Maker, back to Slack and LinkedIn. And so I built a tool that does all of this. And so I migrated from vibe coding, drawing video to no coding podcast artists. So at this point, I had 10 customers. I had a couple of weeks on my own time to figure out the back end, because I figure out back ends for other clients. And this is where I believe that I could stay for a long time in this no code stack. Now, when would I ever migrate to hiring coders? So let's say I have, more than 100 customers, and now 10% of them, 10 people want the original AI animation follow on. That would require real-time algorithm processing. So I would scrap all of my no code, scrap all of my vibe code, and then hire someone to write custom code while I refine the algorithm that would run in real time. I might also want to have 10 million records, because now I have millions of users, and I want to have custom security. So that's when I would move to custom code. And for the companies in here who have an enterprise code base and are thinking about generating code using Cursor or other AI generators, we'd love to have you speak on a different event that's more for enterprise AI generation. But this event is strictly focused on entrepreneurs starting out. And so when you're starting out, especially if you're technical, you should be vibe coding your marketing website to see if anyone even cares about using your product, would spend any time at all, and would pay you even like 99 cents. And last, before we move on to the demos, this is a really good framework that Divya's Microsoft community put together that today we're only talking about cloud platforms. There are 3 types of no-code builders, chatbots like ChatGPT, Cursor, which is a local assistant for those enterprises generating lines of code to add to their existing code base. But today we're only talking about cloud platforms, which are full stack platforms to build and run apps. We'll be talking about Loveable, Supabase, Bubble, and Sharetribe today, but you should also try out V01, Bolt, and Replete, which have beautiful front ends and really complicated, powerful backends as well. So that's just a little context, and everyone is in the right place if you're starting out and wanting to learn how to start out. All right, Natasha, I will turn it over to you.
Fabulous. I want this one. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing.
Perfect. Can y'all see my screen? Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. So these are the demos we're going to cover today. I'm going to kick things off with Loveable, which is, all right, here we go. Website building made simple. You can just use a chat interface to use this cool new tool to spin up websites for you. As someone who's, just loves prototyping, sometimes wants to see an idea come to life very easily, you could be doing this at wherever you work, even if you're not a founder or entrepreneur. Loveable is a really great way to just visualize your ideas. So I'm going to show y'all today some of the really cool features, which include that chat interface to get things going. We can publish if we want to. It has pretty good smart error handling and some great integrations. I'm going to show y'all a basic example, more like prototyping level. And I'll be followed up by Divya, who's going to show y'all, if you have a more specific idea and need a more technical kind of back-end implementation, she'll be walking y'all through that. But let's dive into this demo. So this is the Loveable website. And when you come in, you can just start typing any idea. So I decided, wouldn't it be cool if we could make a website to help startup founders find potential co-founders? You just type it in, and it brings you to this loading screen where it's spinning up our preview. You can see the full prompt I put in. It's very basic. I didn't really think this through. And Loveable starts to tell you what it's doing on its side. For this first version, here's what it's going to do. Give me a compelling landing page. It sometimes does take a little bit, which is why I pre-recorded this demo. Just to give you some context too, this full demo actually took me about an hour to put together. But we're kind of condensing it into some of the meaty parts of it, so we don't just spend an hour waiting for Loveable to think. But yeah, in this case, this initial version took about 6.5 minutes. I started playing with it. It had this co-founder page that I could look at. This is all just made up data right now, by the way, not integrated anywhere. But this made sense to me, like this is cool. But then my first thought was, actually, you know what? I don't really like that purple. This is for a Stanford event. We want Stanford co-founders. So then I just asked Loveable, can you actually rebrand this for me? It's for a Stanford Alumni Club. So let's do that. Keep it minimalist and professional though. Sometimes a little slow, but 3 minutes later, it turned it all red. I loved it. My next pain point though, was that as I was clicking all this, I was trying to click on this connect button and realizing it doesn't work. Again, this is all fake data. So even though it's just a prototype, this all makes sense. But if I were to send this to someone, they might get confused too. So I thought, what if we could give a few error messages? What if when you click on connect, what if there were a pop-up that says, this is just a sample profile. Stay tuned for actual founder matching events in the future though. Like Jay-Z was saying, this is a great way to build a prototype just to gauge interest before you potentially spend a lot more time building your real functional product. So
And
I asked,
Tasha, this looks so good. It just looks so professional already.
right? Isn't that amazing? So again, I just asked Lovable, what if you did something like that? Didn't really think through it. I'm a pretty iterative person in general. I like to see things as I go. So here, it gave me the little error when I click, but to be honest, it took me a second to find this. It just blended into the background so much. So again, just very iteratively, I started saying like, hey, can you make it more prominent? And now we see this nice, much harder to miss pop-up show up. So again, this is all just iterative. And that's kind of what I wanted to hit at right now. Even if you've never used this, you can just go in and have a conversation with it as you go and see how it's getting built. Anything you don't like, super easy to fix either in the conversational interface, or if it's not working, you can do a GitHub integration and actually go directly into dev mode and into the code. That's what I did just for demo purposes here. I could have probably told Loveable the exact copy I needed right here, but I just went into dev mode and put that in right there. As I was thinking, oh yeah, actually before I get to that, you can also publish this page. So if y'all want to look at this and play with it yourself, that is the website right there. My next thought though was, let's say I'm just getting started. There's potentially a lot of profiles that are going to be on a website like this. So the next thing I wanted to do was, hey, what if Loveable could even build this chat interface to help me find the right co-founder? Maybe I don't even know what I need to look for. So I asked it to do just that, build a chat window so I could talk to my AI agent and figure out what I need in a co-founder.
Language, because it seems like we've read it a different way in terms of what.
Nope. Thanks. So again, I started doing that, but I realized that this is the same message both times. And I realized what was happening on the back end is that Loveable was just making up fake data. And there is a way to actually get Loveable to integrate and send queries to OpenAI. I'm going to show y'all first the basic version for how to do this. And the way I said, got it to do this was, can you actually go talk to OpenAI for the chat interface? I want this to be a real conversation. And what it did was it updated the chat interface. So it's actually going to ask for an API key, which we're going to see in just a second here. But here's everything it was doing. Now, if I open this, oops, that was a little fast. Let's just go back. What it's doing here is for every new user, it's just going to ask them for an open AI API key. And from there, we would be able to have a real conversation here. It saves it in the background. Now it's going to give me an actual OpenAI response. Again, very iteratively, I was like, oh, that looks kind of funny. I don't like that. I asked, can you format that a little better? Now you can see the formatting is there. And yeah, that's, like I said, about an hour of time that, if I were doing this without Loveable, this probably would have taken, I don't know, a couple of days for someone with my expertise. But now with Loveable, I could do it in an hour. And if you all want to go play with it, you can go do that right now. And I will turn it over to Divya to show you kind of like the next level of what you can do with it and with the Supabase integration.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Natasha. I think it was such a clean UI that you created in, a couple of less than an hour. I think that's really impressive. So now we did the front end part, right? It's a good use case if you're an entrepreneur and a solopreneur, you want to show something, out for the people to look at it and maybe, for the seed funding or something. No, it's a great use case. It's also a great use case if you're a product manager, you want to talk to your designers, get the leadership buy-in. I think Loveable is such a great tool to bring all these use cases which are very quick and easy to do from the UI front. But that's not where it stops. It actually can also do more than the UI that we see. So we can actually use Loveable through the natural language, the language that we talk to, and we can integrate the backend, which is basically the data layer. And we can also actually integrate the OpenAI key that Natasha showed, not just at the user level, but just at the backend in the program. And then it just keeps operating and, you can have that chat interface and more. So Loveable is much more than the UI, and that's what I'm going to talk here. And the way I've done or learned this is there's a process to use Loveable. Basically, whatever I've built so far is using Loveable free credits. So Loveable gives you about 5 free credits each day on a rolling basis. So every day these credits kind of get filled up. And with 5 prompts, can you actually build a app? That is where I was heading to. Like, hey, I want to do a front end, a back end, and does it really work? And I was actually able to do it in less than 30 minutes. So that's what I'm going to show here. So the 4 steps, how I went about using Loveable to build a journaling app. And before I do that, I want to actually show you. Again, this is published, so anybody actually can go ahead and just, look through it. So I've just pasted the link. But what I plan to do is, this is what I created where I have a UI. I want to journal each day, right? So I go here, I do continue journaling, and the functionality that I wanted to build was pretty basic, and I think Loveable did an excellent job. I told it to take a date. I told it to put some energy level, productive level in terms of rating, and some notes that I could put in. Not just this, I want it also to save the data. So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to put a quick record. So it has actually auto-selected date for me, which is actually really nice. And then I'm going to put my energy level at maybe 9. I'm pretty happy today doing this demo here. And I think all my to-dos are working fine. So I'm all good today. It's a great day. I just wanted to put it as a note and then just save the entry. And if you see, I actually got this entry saved here. And I also have the previous entry. So what this means is it's actually saving the previous historic data as well as what I just did, which is the real-time data. If I go ahead and click on this one, as you can see, it took the note. So that means the data is saved in the backend. It gave me a wonderful UI again with the ratings, right? And it did this with the basic prompting that I used and less than an hour, I would say. So everything was done. Now let's go back and see how it was done. And that's where the crux of becoming more apt with Loveable or any no-code tool lies. So the first step here is kind of using any LLM, which is basically a ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, anything that you use. ChatGPT is pretty famous with folks, and many folks have already adopted it. So I prefer ChatGPT. I've been like brainstorming it, using it as a brainstorming partner and doing many, single focus productive tasks with it. So what I usually do is I go ahead to ChatGPT, I brainstorm my idea. Hey, this is my app, this is my output, and these are the key functionalities that I want to achieve. Give me a prompt that I could use in Loveable. What this help is not just the structured thinking, but also saving credits. So I do not pay for Loveable, but I can still build with Loveable. And that's what ChatGPT helps me do. And that's why it's always my prereq step. Once I do that, I go next to the Loveable tool where I kind of do the UI. Natasha did a great demo. She brought the Loveable functionality. She showed live like how things work. So we would go through that, but that's the part 2 where you build the front end or the UI. After that, we go back and there's a inbuilt capability where you could actually connect Loveable to a backend, which is called Supabase, all through, again, natural language. Like you can just talk and say, hey, I want to connect to Supabase, and then it will give you certain steps. You follow it, you get connected, less than 5 minutes, and you are done. Not just that, the Supabase, you can actually go to Supabase, you can look at how the data has structured out. So it gives you a schema, which basically is like which table talks to what, which table stores what information, etc. And then the last step is if you want any kind of chat integration or chat functionalities, you could always kind of link APIs, again, through just chatting with Loveable, and you can put the API into Loveable. And how you would do that is what I'm going to show you now. So let's just do the slicing up. The first step is brainstorming with GPT. The second step is building UI with Loveable. Third step is doing the backend with the Supabase. And the fourth step is integrating if need be. So if you have not used ChatGPT, it's an open AI GPT tool. It basically looks like this. So you just go there, define your goals. It gives you a prompt. You kind of iterate if you want to, or you just take that prompt and put it at Loveable. So what it means is in Loveable, you would, from ChatGPT, you would get a prompt like this. So my goal was to build that daily journal where I could actually, put my productivity rating, could put energy rating, put some free form text. And that's what I did, talked, and this is the prompt that I got. Build a daily journal with a landing page, the journaling. There should be entries, it should be saved, how it should be free form, energy, etc. And then if the need be, I could always talk to OpenAI models and create a chat interface. So basically I say, hey, can you explain me how was my last week? And it starts talking to me. And then I gave some more prompts, which was basically I wanted to be responsive, the way it should not act up when it's on web versus mobile. And then I also gave it the color palette, which is totally optional. You can skip it, but I wanted to be in the blue zones, and that's what it happened. So it gave me a really nice output based on a very simple prompt that I put. And after putting the prompt, the next step, as I said, we would go and do the UI, which Natasha was doing. So we come here, we paste the prompt. Once we paste the prompt, as you saw, it was already working on it, and you could see the UI on the side. So you could always review those pages and talk back saying that, hey, I don't like this color, or I want to add this functionality. And that's what you are doing while you're reviewing pages. You could always tweak the designs, do whatever. You could make it responsive. You could add authentication. You could add the database that we're going to talk next, etc. But this is all doing through the Loveable interface. And that's why this tool is really helpful for anybody to get started, even if they have no tech background. The third step is the Supabase. So let's go and figure out now what is Supabase. So when you go to Loveable, when you go to Loveable, what basically happens is, so this is my Loveable prompt. This is where I was actually building this yesterday. So I have my prompts here on one side. I have my UI here on the other side. And And then if you see this, the green thing, it says manage Supabase. So this is how easy it is to connect to Supabase. So basically when you're wanting the backend connection, you just click here. Right now, if you see, it is already for me, the status says it's connected to the backend, and my backend name is Daily Journal. That's what I've put it in the Supabase while I was connecting. So for now, for me, it is connected. But what if you wanted to connect it? It's pretty simple, actually. All you need to do is so I took some screenshots while I was doing it so that it's easier for me to talk through. So basically I was building my app. I went to this green thing. I clicked it. It comes to here saying connect Supabase. Once I click connect Supabase, it opens this page for me where right now you can see the status is not connected. So basically I say, hey, connect a project. As soon as I do that, it gives me like a block to fill some data, basic data information. So here is where I fill in my, the name of the project. I put some password, whether it's like self-generated or you could auto-generate it. And basically region is where, because, you want the region to be very close to you. So if you're in California, you want something in the West Coast. If you're on the East side, you would prefer East side, right? It's basically the latency issues. But what you could do is just put these three simple things, create a project. Once you do this, so for example, for me, I did a daily journal. I put everything in. I created a project. And the next step, whoop, you just get connected to Supabase. It took less than 5 minutes each time I've tried it. And this is how a Supabase really looks like. It's like a database, very easy to use. It's open source, so you're not paying. You're not, bounded by any payments or any, walls. So you're all good playing by yourself. And then once you do that, you come back to Loveable and you connect it, and you're done. So that's all what it takes to connect to it. And what you would see is, because as you saw, the status said it was connected. So for me, when I talked to the Loveable in the backend, it actually created this schema for me. So this is where I was saying that, you could actually see that there is a schema where I have a chart conversation table, I have a profile table, and I have a journal entry table. This is pretty basic because I was just doing very basic functionality for the demo. But if you can go ahead and you could also see that, it's not just the schema, it's actually the tables. You could see how many columns are there, what things are there. So let me just click on one. For instance, the chat conversation, so you could really see that there are IDs, user ID, journals, etc. Right? So this is pretty powerful. I mean, just making the schema and the tables with the right data types, names, etc. This is powerful for somebody who's doing very low or no code. This is pretty awesome, I feel. So coming back, so we learned, right? So we did the brainstorming, we put the Loveable, did the UI, we came back, we connected the backend, all well and good. What if, this is totally optional, but what if like we want to do what Natasha did? We wanted that API thing, we want the chat functionality, etc., right? What I did is I just simply talked to Loveable again, hey, Loveable, I want to make this chat functionality and I want to add my API keys. So if you see here, it actually, you see this thing is grayed out because I asked it to put in my API key. And how we go about that is we go to OpenAI Playground, which is basically a link where you could talk to OpenAI APIs. So you go here, you create an account. Once you create an account, you go to settings, you go to the API key, you basically generate a key. So this is basically you are putting like, hey, my app wants to talk to your model, give me the credentials, right? So this is what it does. You should never share your key. You should always keep it as a secret, but this is where you pick up the key. The very important part to know is that once you create a key, immediately copy and store it somewhere because you would never be able to like grab it again. So you can always delete and create new one, but I cannot like grab this key once I've done. And it's all for security and safety purposes. But once you do that, all you do is that, so basically go to OpenAI, get your key, go to Loveable, use the prompt that I use. Like here, you will get something like, hey, add API key, you click it and it gives you a box where you could just add the key and whoop, you're done. Like that's the only step you have to do. There's no complex coding, anything that you have to do in the front, and everything is taken care by the Loveable. So this is actually super easy. And in the end, just recapping, I hope you got the wisdom nuggets from the iterations that I've done over last few months. So it's basically first define your vision and talk to GPT, anyone which you prefer, get that structured thinking in, get the prompt, put it in Loveable, get your UI, connect the data, super easy, less than 5-10 minutes to connect to Supabase. And then you can, add your AI magic. You can do the OpenAI or the API or whatever you want to. You could actually also do the Stripe connection here to do the payments, etc. But that's all from me. Thanks so much. And passing over to Thomas.
Thanks, Divya. I'm gonna go next, but a question for you. Did it generate the data structure for you?
Yeah,
like
it
those
did.
3 tables, yeah?
Yeah, so I prompted, I connected, and it generated the structure. Not just the structure, also you saw it shows the data type and everything, which you have to be careful while you're actually doing this. So everything was done through prompting.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, next I'm going to switch from vibe coding to no coding. Because with no coding, the configuration I set deletes past code. So what I get scared about in vibe coding is it adds new lines of code to old code, and then I don't know which line is the current line. So I like both, but for no coding, I feel more confident in it. Does anybody have any questions up to this point?
Yes. How was the data like managed when you do the backend integration with Loveable? Like as far as the user tables.
Yeah, there's 50 MB of data that is allowable, and then you have to like figure things out from there. But for initial prototyping or initial doing anything, I think it's great. I can actually post the link where you could learn more about it. But I've tried few tools. I think this tool is doing a really good job so far. I mean, there are courses and replies, but for a person who's starting off with no tech skills, it's a really great tool.
Thank you.
If you're trying this out to pitch around an idea for a new startup, is there any risk that the Loveable company owns any of your IP or anything like that?
Not that I know of, but you can always check. But there are a lot of people building a lot of apps already. So yeah, but you can always check the legalities around it.
Thomas, can I ask you to share our Gamma slide, and then I can read from your screen share?
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Okay.
While you're doing that, someone in the chat had asked about if there's a version of this for phone app coding, and I was wondering if there's an answer for that.
I was already starting to research that in the background. So I don't know of anything right now, but we'll circle back to that after this.
Yeah, and speakers, you guys should put your LinkedIn so people get back in touch with you. So for this move from vibe code to no code, I will say that Bubble just came out with their mobile app, so you can generate a mobile app with no code now. And I think that's pretty exciting if you have a use case where you have like a daily active user. But I'm going to talk about the podcast artist app that I built. Podcast artist was no coded with bubble.io. But because I had vibe coded websites to test product market fit in the past, I knew that coming to a table of contents with upcoming events and quick actions was a no-go. As a user myself and my users all wanted to come to a homepage with this create event surface not hidden behind a button. So I created a version of the Stanford podcast event art poster in Bubble. It replaces ChatGPT for the title, LinkedIn for the image and the name and the title, and Canva for downloading this artwork. It replaces Slack and Adobe Acrobat Creator for marketing your event. Let me show you the demo. I'm gonna log out. When you come to the logged out state, anyone can try it for free. I am going to create a podcast artwork with Divya as my guest. Taking her LinkedIn, scraping my LinkedIn, getting all the pictures and the names correct. I'm also going to put the time in and write a title that I'll rewrite with AI. Vibe coding for the win. The title's already there, so let's see what AI does with it. I like this code with confidence because it's so new. How do you even know if this is something you should try? So we're here to help people who are coding for the first time and coding for the last time, and new founders and many time exited founders. Now that I like this podcast art, I'm going to want to download it. In order to download it, I have to create an account. I already have an account, so I'm going to log in. But whether you sign up or log in, your work will not be lost. It'll be duplicated into your account. Logging in here. Here we are. I also had some issues with contracts because bigger enterprises that become your guests will want to understand the intellectual property. This is a Creative Commons boilerplate contract. I can create a PDF of all my terms that legal and your guests can sign. This used to take me hours of copy and pasting. Then I can also download the poster. You'll see that I'm going to be automating this to post for us. And then I'm also going to be Slacking, because in the world of B2B, Slack and LinkedIn are very important. The reason I created this was because all the social post schedulers were focused on Meta, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, maybe a little bit of Twitter, but actually it's very expensive to get a account for reposting to Slack. Let's see how that works. This is my Slack direct message to myself in Natasha's Stanford Alumni and Tech group. And I'm going to Slack myself and other key group organizers like Natasha. Here I'll put in content of my message, and then I'll show you in debug mode the steps that the backend will go through. Once the trigger is clicked, I'm going to sign in with my secret key that's set in the configurations elsewhere. And then I'm going to send a message to myself because I already have access as a member of Natasha's Slack channel. Let's check it out. There you go. That's the message I just sent to myself, and I could automate to send to 5 other board of directors in other groups. What else? I'll show you quickly. These are my data rows. Each time someone creates a podcast artwork, it'll be a row. And then the API connector is not vibe coded. There are the calls in the API for Gemini AI that I quite like, but you could swap this out for ChatGPT, Grok, any of your favorite preferred AIs. Wrapping up. Why no code instead of vibe coding? Well, I had already vibe coded the website for product market fit. So I had these insights, and because of those insights, I had 10 users, and I had a couple of weeks to spend on the back end because now there's really a payoff to making it work in the back end. Why not hire developers? Well, as a solopreneur, my goal is to retain all my equity and see if I can do it myself with the help of AI. So if you're a alumni group organizer, podcast host, I'd love to give you a free instance of my software in exchange for feedback. And our group, Stanford Entrepreneurs, is committed to helping entrepreneurs find their paying customers, their first beta testers, their advisors, and their co-founders. So let's chat about that. Here's my calendar link, and please book a call. All right, we're going to move on to the next speaker.
All right. I guess that's me. And I have, JC, just want to confirm, you're all set with me moving on?
Yeah, thanks so much, Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm coming here, I think we've heard, from Natasha and Divya about vibe coding and how you can build, and then JZ presented a bit of a transition, right, where you have vibe coding and no code combined. And I'm going to go and play the full foil here to the vibe coding and remind you of these ancient tools nowadays called no code tools that are there for creating apps as well still, and make an argument that there's still a place for these. When is there a place for these? Well, when, for example, you have very specific requirements, right? Perhaps you also have tight timelines and you might not be super technical. As we've seen with vibe coding, they are incredible for creating a prototype, but there's quite a lot of work still to do for defining those last 20%, right? And making sure that it works, which can be a technically daunting task for some, as well as have a lot of open questions. And if you have, instead of very defined problems, there might be a solution for already out there that has solved that technical problem where you don't need to, even with vibe code, sort of work through those steps. Another reason why that might be useful is when your technology is a commodity, right? In the case of marketplaces, that's what our software does. It helps you build this two-sided marketplace like an Airbnb, right? The technology is not that interesting, actually. If you go across all these marketplaces, they're very similar. What's their real value is in the community they have, the liquidity, the likelihood that you're going to find what you're looking for on them. So if you have applications like that, or businesses that you're building like that, where maybe unique technology is not the value of your business, there might be a tool out there that's already solved the technical things for you, right? And that's the case with Sharetribe for marketplaces. So let's have a look how a marketplace can come together really quickly with these sorts of tools. So what I've done is I've just created a trial account on Sharetribe, and what that has given me is this marketplace website, this template of a marketplace with nothing on it, right? But we can see we have a search and we have a landing page, but it's all generic, right? And so let's make it specific to what we want to do really quickly with a set of no-code tools. I think I mentioned I live in San Diego. I moved here from Finland. As any good transplant to San Diego, I've picked up surfing. I've acquired a lot of surfboards. So I want to build a marketplace for renting my extra surfboards and make some money, right? So I'm going to take this generic thing and I'm going to make a specific Airbnb for renting surfboards. Let's start with the landing page. Now, I know I don't have too much time, so I've made some adjustments already here. I've changed the words that are being used. I've changed the picture. I'll show you quickly that I'll also change, or change the picture, change the words, where I changed a little bit of the appearance. I'll show you quickly. Let me also change the search to look a little bit more Airbnb-like, be a little bit more familiar. And it's really as easy as clicking a button, hitting save, and hitting refresh, and we've sort of changed the search experience all of a sudden, right? That same thing goes for branding the marketplace, taking this generic thing, making it specific. In my case, I love orange. Let's get my favorite color on there. And my designers tell me orange looks good with white. I wouldn't know, but let's just quickly see how that comes together. Amazing. So we already have a branded skin marketplace in no time. Let's get to the user experience, right? Let's get that liquidity going with putting forth some listings and show that, again, for a defined problem, we might already have functionality out of the box that we can take advantage of. So in this case, I've got a seller here created. I'm going to log in as them and post a listing, right? Let's get some surfboards on this marketplace, right? And when it comes to surfboards, we want to have a very specific data model, right? We want to talk about surfboard types that we have in surfboard categories to make them easy to discover and easy to post, right? Which isn't there right now in this generic thing, but we're going to add it in real quick. So for surfboards, we've got maybe shortboards, and we might have middle length boards, mid lengths, and we of course have long boards. So let's add these categories in and immediately be able to take them in as the end user on the marketplace website, right? All right, let's make a short board. Well, boards need some attributes, right? They need some fields. So let's add some fields. What might be interesting? Let's say wave size, right? That we want to give our customers the ability to filter and understand a board by the appropriate wave size. So we'll say small. We'll say medium-sized waves. And of course, we've got to have our big waves. And we want to add a filter to the search page based on that and save those changes. Oh, looks like I forgot something. Oh, I add a space there. Boom. Let's save that. We could add other attributes, but I think you get the idea, because if I refresh here, again, we'll have our categories. We're making a short board and we'll have that attribute already created. All right, so really quickly, we can start making our listings, in this case, rich and detailed to the concept that we want to do. But let's actually see what this looks like, what functionality we get out of the box. And it's made for big waves for sure. All right, I live in San Diego already. Things that we might need to think about with vibe coding, but in this case of a predefined problem, right? Marketplaces, they need location. That functionality is already there. Airbnb style, we need to know when the thing is available, when is it not already there, ready to take into use. And of course, adding a photo to make it really attractive. And then we'll publish the listing and have a real quick look at what it looks like to actually discover that listing as a customer and make a booking. So I'm going to log out, and now we will go through what a customer sees real quick. Well, let's find our board, right? So located, I want a short board. I'm in San Diego, and I'm here for vacation. So next week, I'm looking for boards that are available in this timeline. Look at that. There it is. Of course, if I, let's say, just looked for a board over the weekend, you might have noticed the eagle-eyed among you that it's not available on the weekend, and the filters correspond to that, right? Reset the filters back to the short board, and we can make a booking, a payment, and start earning money with that. Of course, as a customer, I need to sign up, and I'll do that real fast. And make this booking. So this is what an existing tool, right, can do if you have a very defined problem like building a marketplace. Now, that doesn't mean that vibe coding doesn't have an impact, and I think well, obviously my company's thinking about, how is the experience of being able to create whatever you want on a tool like Loveable? What does that mean for our business, and what does it mean for no code in general? And I think it's one huge thing is this ability to build with natural language. There's definitely something that lacks here that you get in Loveable, is that delightful experience of typing something in and getting something back, right? That instead you have these sort of what now looks ancient configuration panels to get things going. So there's definitely something there. Also being able to expand on what you have here, right? That this obviously gives you out of the box functionality, but you can imagine how you'd want that to work differently. And vibe coding unlocks a really powerful skill set to expand on existing technologies if they enable it, and give no coders, non-technical people, these really powerful technical tools to take what exists and expand upon it. On the flip side, what we can give to vibe coding is a constrained environment, right? On the chat, I've already mentioned the thing with vibe coding, there's a lot of details to figure out, right? And maybe we can't think of all the details, or we don't want to worry about those details. And if we can create these constrained environments for AI to build within, then maybe it's easier to get something production ready going and sort of combine the best of both worlds of having predefined and existing frameworks that solved a lot of the problems with that creativity of vibe coding that we get. So that's my presentation. And I think now is the time for questions for all of us. Yes. So I'll stop sharing and give the mic to everyone, I guess.
That's great, Thomas. I see a question. You don't own the website if you no code it?
Correct. It's a hosted solution, right? So you don't own the code, but you own the data, right? Sharetribe has a way to own the code as well. I won't get into that, but generally it's a hosted solution and you own the things that go through it, but not the actual logic of the code itself.
Well, I'm curious, if there are oh, you know what, Natasha, go ahead.
I love the notification that tells you you're muted. While we're waiting on other questions, in case this helps remind anyone of something they were struggling with, just wanted to go over a quick summary of everything we reviewed today. We went through Loveable, Supabase, Bubble, and Sharetribe. Sharetribe and Loveable, great for MVP prototyping, has some limitations, some of which are solved through different integrations, like Supabase on the back end. Bubble is great if you're building something more complex, or if you're trying to build some sort of marketplace. Sharetribe's your go-to, can handle all the complexity of that. We didn't cover some of these other tools, but they were on a previous slide, so kind of wanted to just make sure to revisit them in case you're looking for some of these other use cases as well. But yeah.
I don't know how much time we have for Q&A, but I am curious, like, what are you guys gonna build? Like, are you gonna build a marketplace? Do you have a, front end that you have in mind? Are you gonna try one of these tools? Okay,
While we
well,
wait to see, I'm going to try to quickly cover Cecilia's question here. We haven't covered this one yet, right? Data security risks.
mhm.
Yes. So Cecilia, I've been vibe coding a little bit, using a lot of these free tools, very consumer-driven tools. And just over the weekend, I was faced with a potential project that did involve a lot of potentially confidential information. So I started digging into other solutions. I think, the TLDR is if you are working with some sort of sensitive information, you may not be looking at some of the tools we demoed today. What I started to look at was a lot of the Google Cloud tools like Document AI, Vertex AI, and a few other ones. There's still great options on there. They might just require a little more technical expertise, but still not nearly as much as you probably would have needed a decade ago. But yeah, I was just kind of asking ChatGPT and I think Claude to compare, what they said, of course. Oh, and Gemini. Gemini was recommending all the Google solutions. ChatGPT had another set of ideas for how I could do some data sensitive projects. So yeah, you probably just want to do a little more research rather than using some of these out of the box tools.
Well, Jacqueline's gonna build I want to try to build a way folks can think through pricing better. That's exciting. And Noel says this explodes the horizon in a good way. And why don't we end with Rosie's question? Is it worth it to get more than the basic version?
Yeah, I can take up that question and share my feedback, and then maybe folks can add in. So far I have worked with all free credits, and you can actually build end to end. It's just that takes time because you just get 5 free credits, and you have to be very cautious, getting the prompts right. So if you have your plan already prepared and then you do it, it becomes much more easier. But now if you want to build something more complex, that's where your free version doesn't work, because I'm also building something that's complex. And for that, you actually need a Teams version or a paid version. So yeah, it depends on what you want to really build. If you're just doing prototyping and just initial ideas, you do not need to pay, to be very frank. But if you are really thinking like a big plan that you have and you want to explore, you could actually try out with the paid version for a month or so and see how it works for you.
I would also say the other consideration is just how patient are you? I started off vibe coding, just asking ChatGPT and Claude, and then I would kind of just go work in my own like terminal window or something. And a lot of times I would run out of the free credits on one of those, but I could just either wait a few hours for it to reset, or I could just switch to another service. Like it was a little inconvenient and required some patience, but it was definitely something I could get away with. I will say the demo I showed y'all in Loveable, I do have a paid Loveable account. And I actually didn't try the free one. I just got a paid one through a different connection. But yeah, I've never run out of credits, never run into any issues with that. So that's partially why I'm able to just really use Loveable in a more fun, iterative way, which is just magical, especially compared to struggling to use some of the free versions of the other products.
Well, awesome. I think this was a exciting demo. So thanks everyone for joining.